A poorly controlled and disappointing addition to an overpopulated genre. Red Risk is a wave-based zombie fighter like many others, set in a small collection of arenas for what appears to be some kind of reality TV setup, though this is never really established and the story only goes as far as the opening cutscene. I may as well get this out there first, as it's probably going to be mentioned multiple times throughout. The control system for this game is awful. In order to move your character, you need to position your cursor and hold the right mouse button. This means you can't avoid attacks and usually end up taking damage any time you want to fight. The only justification I can think of for this is if it was a mobile port, but I can't find any evidence that this is the case. There are only brief mentions that it was to make the game harder. You should never hinder the player's ability to control a character to increase difficulty. It just leads to frustration and a feeling that you have no power over the game, which ultimately leads to a lack of immersion, disconnection from the game, and finally boredom. So, what about the gameplay? Well, unfortunately this is no rose garden either. It is severely lacking, as the only successful way to fight a large majority of the monsters is to rub against them and hope that you come off better. This doesn't apply in all cases because you can generally use your character's special power ability to avoid taking as much damage as you deal out. But for many of the other games I've played like this one, the monsters should be feared. You should want to avoid contact at all costs because it makes for a far more tense experience. This is usually achieved with some kind of dodge or block mechanic, both of which are totally absent in Red Risk. The actual content itself also comes up short as it uses the same wave format for every level and every difficulty setting. Once you've done a run through, which will take anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes, you've seen literally everything there is to see in terms of monsters. The only variety comes in two forms, one of which is the level changes, but even these aren't vastly different. The scenery changes a little and the traps in the arena are slightly different. And you can choose between one of three characters, each with a different weapon and a special ability which cannot be changed or upgraded in any way. The only character that seemed vaguely useful in solo play is Jason the Axeman, as he has a much higher base HP and therefore can take the punishment which is unavoidable from some of the later bosses. I didn't actually have a chance to try the multiplayer, as I haven't seen a single game appear on the server list in my entire playtime, and honestly inviting friends to play this with you is a cruel endeavour that will leave you cold and alone when they realise what you made them buy. There are a couple of positives in that the soundtrack is pretty awesome and the general theme of the game is good, both of which you could just get from the trailer and not have to pay a penny. The style is clearly borrowed from games such as Killing Floor, with many of the creatures being seemingly based on humans, and the very visceral way in which they die. The crawlers even appear to just be cut and paste straight out of it. I don't know why, but I find one of the monster designs particularly funny. It is essentially a very tall man being carried around by a pair of spider slippers. As you can probably guess, I can't personally recommend anyone purchase this game, regardless of price or how much game time you can put into it. The game does actually have a positive score on Steam, so some people are clearly happy enough with what Red Risk provides. Some even gave it a glowing review, which makes me wonder if they were even playing the same game. On a positive note, the developer is still active, and there is even mention that the control system may be improved. That would go a long way to making this game at the very least playable in my eyes. There are many top-down zombie shooters out there, and I can't think of a single reason to buy this one over any of them.